Kundalini Serpent Mysteries, written and published by Ngasline. The Serpent Doctrine of Moses. The ancient wisdom traditions have long recognized the serpent as a powerful symbol of spiritual transformation and awakening. In the biblical narrative, this symbolism takes center stage through the teachings and experiences of Moses, whose encounters with serpentine power reveal deeper esoteric truths about human spiritual evolution. The brass serpent raised upon the pole, known as the Ngasline, stands as one of the most significant yet misunderstood symbols in religious history. Moses' early training in Egyptian mystery schools provided him with profound understanding of serpent wisdom, which he later incorporated into his teachings to the Israelites. The Egyptian initiates understood that the serpent represented the divine creative force that lies dormant within every human being. This force, known in Eastern traditions as Kundalini, was symbolized by the uraeus serpent worn on the foreheads of Egyptian pharaohs and high priests. The famous account of Moses lifting up the brass serpent in the wilderness carries multiple layers of meaning. On the surface, it appears as a healing symbol for those bitten by poisonous snakes. However, the deeper esoteric interpretation reveals it as an initiation into higher consciousness. The brass serpent upon the pole mirrors the ascent of Kundalini energy through the central channel of the spine, known in Eastern traditions as the Sushumna Nadi. When Moses commanded the people to look upon the raised serpent for healing, he was actually instructing them in an ancient meditation technique. The upward gaze activates the pineal gland and stimulates the rise of serpent power from the base of the spine. This same principle was later referenced by Jesus when he said, "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up." The rod of Moses, which transformed into a serpent before Pharaoh, represents mastery over this spiritual force. When Moses cast down his rod and it became a serpent, it demonstrated the descent of divine power into matter. When he grasped the serpent and it became a rod again, it symbolized the raising of that power back to divine consciousness. This transformation mirrors the alchemical process of spiritual awakening. Egyptian mystery teachings heavily influenced Moses' understanding of serpent power. The initiates of ancient Egypt recognized the spine as the tree of life, with the serpent power rising through various energy centers or branches. This knowledge was carefully preserved and passed down through secret traditions, eventually finding its way into Kabbalistic teachings and other esoteric systems. The connection between Moses and serpent wisdom extends beyond these obvious examples. The very name Moses relates to water, and in esoteric symbolism, water represents the flow of spiritual energy or consciousness. The parting of the Red Sea can be understood as the separation of the right and left energy channels to allow the rise of Kundalini through the central channel. The tabernacle that Moses constructed, according to divine instruction, contained numerous serpentine symbols, including the 7-branched menorah representing the 7 major energy centers or chakras. The Ark of the Covenant itself, with its 2 cherubim facing each other, symbolized the ultimate union of polarized energies in higher consciousness. Moses' serpent doctrine laid the foundation for later spiritual teachings, including those of Jesus and the early Christian Gnostics. This ancient wisdom continues to resonate with modern spiritual seekers who recognize that the serpent represents not temptation or evil, but rather the divine creative force that leads to enlightenment when properly awakened and directed. Understanding Moses' serpent doctrine provides a crucial key to unlocking the deeper meanings within biblical texts and reveals the universal nature of spiritual truth. This wisdom tradition bridges the apparent gap between Eastern and Western spiritual teachings, showing that at their core, they share common understanding of humanity's spiritual potential and the path to its realization. Kundalini in early Christianity. Long before Christianity emerged as an organized religion, serpent wisdom teachings permeated ancient cultures worldwide. These sacred teachings found their way into early Christian mysticism through various channels, particularly through Gnostic traditions that recognized deeper spiritual truths beyond literal interpretations of religious texts. The pre-Christian world was rich with serpent symbolism, from the Egyptians' uraeus to the Greek caduceus. As Christianity began to take shape, many of these ancient wisdom traditions were naturally incorporated into its esoteric teachings. The early Gnostic Christians, in particular, understood Jesus' teachings as a path to direct spiritual awakening, similar to the Eastern concept of Kundalini awakening. In Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, references to the serpent of wisdom appear frequently, often portrayed not as a tempter, but as a bearer of divine knowledge. These texts suggest that early Christian mystics understood the serpentine force as the divine energy of transformation, the same energy that Eastern traditions call Kundalini. They saw Jesus not merely as a historical figure, but as an embodiment of this transformative power. The early Church, while eventually rejecting many Gnostic teachings, retained numerous symbols that hint at this deeper understanding. The fish symbol, for instance, represents not only the miracle of loaves and fishes, but also the vessel of divine energy moving through water, a metaphor for Kundalini rising through the cerebrospinal fluid. The dove descending represents the descent of divine energy from the crown chakra, much like the descent of the Holy Spirit. One of the most significant connections between early Christianity and Kundalini wisdom lies in the sun symbolism. Ancient Christians recognized Jesus as the Sun of Righteousness, rising with healing in his wings. This solar symbolism directly correlates to the fiery nature of Kundalini energy, which rises like the sun from the base of the spine to illuminate the whole being. The concept of the light of the world in Christian teaching parallels the illuminating nature of Kundalini energy. When early Christians spoke of being filled with the Holy Spirit, they were describing an experience remarkably similar to Kundalini awakening, a rush of divine energy that transforms consciousness and brings about spiritual gifts or charisms. Early Christian mystical practices, particularly those preserved in desert monasticism, include breathing techniques and contemplative practices that mirror classical Kundalini yoga methods. The Jesus Prayer, for instance, with its rhythm synchronized to breathing, serves a similar function to pranayama practices in activating and directing subtle energy. The symbol of the cross itself holds deeper meaning when viewed through the lens of Kundalini wisdom. The vertical beam represents the spinal column through which Kundalini rises, while the horizontal beam represents the transcendence of duality at the heart center. This understanding was preserved in various Christian mystical traditions, though often veiled in metaphorical language. Even the Christian emphasis on the narrow way that leads to life reflects the subtle central channel, sushumna, through which Kundalini rises. The warning that few find it suggests the esoteric nature of this knowledge, preserved for those ready to undergo profound spiritual transformation. These early Christian understandings of Kundalini energy were gradually obscured as the Church became more institutionalized, but they were never completely lost. They survived in the teachings of Christian mystics, the symbols of sacred art, and the deeper meanings of liturgical practices. Today, as we bridge Eastern and Western spiritual traditions, these ancient connections are becoming clear once again, revealing the universal nature of spiritual awakening across all traditions. The 33 gateways. The ancient wisdom traditions have long recognized the human spine as far more than just a biological structure. It represents a sacred ladder of consciousness through which divine energy ascends. This concept was beautifully captured in the biblical story of Jacob's ladder, where angels were seen ascending and descending between heaven and earth. This metaphorical ladder directly correlates to the 33 vertebrae of the human spine, each representing a gateway or level of spiritual attainment. The number 33 holds profound significance across multiple spiritual traditions. It appears repeatedly in sacred geometry, ancient architecture, and religious symbolism. Jesus was said to have performed 33 recorded miracles and lived 33 years. The Masonic tradition recognizes 33 degrees of initiation. These references are not coincidental, but point to a deeper understanding of the spine's role in spiritual evolution. Each vertebrae serves as an energetic gateway through which the Kundalini force must pass as it rises from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. The spine's natural curves create 3 main segments. the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar regions, each associated with different aspects of consciousness transformation. The cervical vertebrae relate to higher mental faculties, the thoracic vertebrae to emotional refinement, and the lumbar vertebrae to primal energy transmutation. The sacred geometry of the spine reveals perfect divine proportions. The double helix pattern of DNA is mirrored in the twin channels that run alongside the central spinal column, the Ida and Pingala nadis in Eastern terminology. These energy channels spiral around the central Sushumna nadi in a pattern that precisely matches the Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio proportions found throughout nature. As Kundalini energy awakens and begins its ascent, it must pass through each vertebral gateway, clearing karmic patterns and expanding consciousness at each level. This process is reflected in the stages of spiritual initiation found in mystery schools throughout history. The 33 vertebrae become 33 initiatory degrees, each opening new levels of awareness and spiritual capability. The base of the spine, the sacrum, was considered so sacred that it got its name from the Latin word sacred. This triangular bone houses the sleeping Kundalini energy before its awakening. As we ascend the spine, we encounter major nerve plexuses that correspond to the chakra system. Each plexus serves as a transformer, stepping down higher spiritual frequencies so they can be integrated into the physical body. The spinal column creates a perfect antenna for receiving and transmitting spiritual energy. Its design follows precise mathematical and geometric principles that facilitate energy flow between dimensions. The cerebral spinal fluid that bathes the spine and brain contains trace amounts of gold and other conductive elements that enhance its ability to carry subtle electrical currents and higher frequencies. When viewed from an energetic perspective, each vertebrae contains its own sacred geometric pattern, a crystalline matrix that processes and refines spiritual energy as it passes through. These patterns become increasingly complex as we move up the spine, corresponding to more refined states of consciousness. The entire spinal column thus becomes a living temple of transformation, with each vertebra serving as a sacred altar where matter and spirit merge. Understanding the spine's role as a ladder of consciousness reveals why so many spiritual practices focus on proper posture, spinal movements, and energy work along the central channel. The 33 gateways represent stages of an initiatory journey that gradually transforms ordinary consciousness into Christ consciousness or Buddha nature. This is the hidden meaning behind Jacob's vision. The spine is quite literally a stairway to heaven, through which we can ascend to higher dimensional awareness. The sacred crosspoint. The concept of the sacred crosspoint represents one of the most profound mysteries in both Eastern and Western esoteric traditions. At its core lies the optical thalamus, an essential region of the brain that serves as both a physical and metaphysical crossroads. This sacred intersection carries deep significance in understanding the transformative process of spiritual awakening and the true meaning behind religious symbolism, particularly the crucifixion. The optical thalamus sits at the center of the brain, functioning as a relay station for sensory and motor signals. In esoteric anatomy, this point represents the meeting place of vital spiritual energies. It is here that the ascending Kundalini force meets descending cosmic energies, creating a powerful vortex of transformation. This intersection forms an energetic cross within the human body, mirroring the symbolic cross of Christianity and other spiritual traditions. When we examine the crucifixion story through this lens, we discover layers of meaning beyond the historical narrative. The cross represents not just a physical implement of torture, but a map of consciousness transformation. The vertical beam symbolizes the ascending Kundalini energy through the spine, while the horizontal beam represents the crossing point at the optical thalamus. This sacred geometry creates the conditions necessary for spiritual resurrection and enlightenment. The thalamus serves as a gateway between physical sensation and consciousness, between matter and spirit. As Kundalini energy rises to this point, it triggers a process of divine alchemy. The pressures and energies converging at this crossroads initiate profound changes in consciousness, perception, and spiritual awareness. This is why many mystical traditions speak of dying to the old self at this juncture. The intersection creates the conditions for radical transformation. Ancient mystery schools understood this process intimately. They encoded this knowledge in various symbols and allegories, including the caduceus with its crossing serpents. The point where the serpent's cross corresponds to this same thalamic center. This symbol appears in both medical and spiritual contexts, highlighting the connection between physical and spiritual healing processes. The sacred cross point also relates to what esoteric traditions call the mystic marriage, the union of opposing forces necessary for spiritual rebirth. Here, the masculine and feminine energies within the body meet and merge. The descending spiritual force, often associated with the divine masculine, meets the ascending Kundalini energy, typically viewed as the divine feminine. Their union at the thalamic crosspoint generates the Christ consciousness within. This intersection creates various phenomena reported in mystical experiences. The pressure of energies meeting at this point can produce light phenomena, often described as the inner light or Christ light by mystics. The thalamic region's proximity to the pineal and pituitary glands helps explain the visionary experiences associated with spiritual awakening. The crosspoint acts as a transformer, stepping down higher frequencies of consciousness into forms that human awareness can process and integrate. Understanding the sacred crosspoint helps illuminate many religious symbols and practices. The sign of the cross, for instance, takes on deeper meaning when viewed as a gesture acknowledging this internal process. Similarly, references to being crucified with Christ can be understood as describing this transformative intersection of energies within the spiritual seeker. The sacred crosspoint represents a crucial stage in the journey of consciousness evolution. It marks the threshold between lower and higher awareness, between ordinary and illuminated consciousness. When Kundalini energy reaches and properly activates this center, it initiates a process of transformation that can lead to profound spiritual realization. This understanding bridges the gap between Eastern Kundalini teachings and Western religious symbolism, revealing their common foundation in universal spiritual anatomy. Pineal mysteries. The pineal gland, often referred to as the third eye in esoteric traditions, holds profound significance in both Eastern and Western mystical teachings. This small, pine cone-shaped organ, situated in the center of the brain, has been revered throughout history as a gateway to higher consciousness and spiritual awakening. In the biblical context, numerous references allude to this mystical center, often described through metaphorical language about spiritual sight and divine perception. The awakening of the third eye through Kundalini activation represents a crucial milestone in spiritual development. As the serpent fire ascends through the spinal column, it eventually reaches the pineal gland, stimulating what mystics describe as multidimensional perception. This expanded awareness transcends ordinary physical sight, enabling the practitioner to perceive subtle energies, higher dimensions, and spiritual truths directly. Ancient traditions preserved knowledge of the pineal gland's activation through symbolic teachings. The Egyptian eye of Horus, the Hindu Tilaka mark, and various religious references to the light of the body is the eye all point to this sacred center. When Jesus spoke of the single eye making the whole body full of light, he was describing the awakened pineal function that transforms consciousness. The physical location of the pineal gland is particularly significant. Positioned in the geometric center of the brain, it sits at the level of the third ventricle in perfect alignment with the pituitary gland. This placement creates an energetic circuit that, when activated, produces profound effects on consciousness. The ancient Greeks understood this, depicting their god Hermes with a staff featuring two intertwined serpents meeting at a central point, a symbol that mirrors the subtle anatomy of pineal activation. Kundalini energy, as it rises to this level, triggers biochemical changes within the pineal gland. Modern science has discovered that this tiny organ produces powerful neurochemicals, including dimethyltryptamine, often called the spirit molecule. This provides a fascinating bridge between ancient wisdom and contemporary research. suggesting a physical basis for transcendent states of consciousness described in spiritual traditions. Biblical texts contain numerous references to light, vision, and spiritual sight that correlate with pineal activation. Phrases like, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," and references to having eyes to see point to this higher faculty of perception. The transformation of Saul on the road to Damascus, where he was struck by a brilliant light and temporarily blinded, represents a dramatic example of pineal activation in religious literature. The process of awakening the third eye requires careful preparation and proper technique. As Kundalini rises, it must be guided safely through the lower centers before reaching this sensitive area. Traditional practices, including meditation, breathwork, and specific visualizations, help prepare the system for this activation. The ancient mystery schools taught these techniques progressively, understanding the importance of proper foundation and timing. When fully awakened, the pineal center enables direct spiritual perception beyond ordinary sensory experience. Practitioners report experiences of inner light, expanded awareness, and access to higher dimensions of consciousness. This state transcends intellectual understanding, providing direct insight into spiritual realities. The biblical phrase, "we shall see face to face," refers to this direct perception, where truth is known immediately rather than through the filtered lens of ordinary mind. Maintaining and integrating this expanded awareness requires ongoing practice and purification. The awakened third eye becomes a channel for divine guidance, intuitive knowledge, and spiritual connection. Regular meditation, ethical living, and continued energy work help stabilize and deepen these capabilities. The ultimate goal is not just momentary experiences, but a permanent transformation of consciousness that bridges the physical and spiritual dimensions of existence. Sacral transformation. The mystery of spiritual transformation has always been deeply connected to the sacrum, the triangular bone at the base of the spine. This sacred bone, from which the word sacred originates, holds profound significance in both Eastern and Western esoteric traditions. The 3-day cave mysteries, prominently featured in various religious texts, symbolize the intense transformation process that occurs when Kundalini energy awakens at the sacral center. In the biblical narrative, Jesus spent 3 days in the tomb before his resurrection, a period that mirrors the ancient initiatory process of spiritual death and rebirth. This sacred interval represents the time required for consciousness to fully transition through the vital stages of transformation. The cave or tomb symbolizes the sacred chamber of the sacrum, where dormant spiritual energy lies coiled like a sleeping serpent. The sacrum's unique triangular shape holds geometric significance in sacred architecture and human anatomy. Its 3 fused vertebrae correspond to the 3 primary stages of Kundalini awakening: penetration, purification, and illumination. The ancient Egyptians recognized this bone as the seat of resurrection, preserving it carefully during mummification as they believed it contained the seed of spiritual rebirth. When Kundalini energy awakens, it begins its ascent from the sacral region through a process that ancient mystics described as death before death. This experience involves a profound reorganization of the subtle energy system, often accompanied by intense physical and psychological phenomena. The initiate undergoes a dissolution of old patterns and identities, similar to the metaphorical death described in mystery traditions. The resurrection symbolism associated with the 3-day cave mystery reflects the emergence of transformed consciousness. Just as Jesus emerged from the tomb with a glorified body, the awakened initiate experiences a profound shift in awareness and perception. This transformation isn't merely psychological, but involves actual changes in the body's electromagnetic field and nervous system functioning. During sacral activation, waves of energy begin to pulse upward through the spinal column, gradually opening and purifying each energy center. This process mirrors the ancient Egyptian understanding of the Dejed pillar, representing the spine of Osiris and the path of spiritual ascension. The sacrum acts as a transformer, converting raw spiritual energy into refined frequencies that can be safely integrated into the higher centers. The stages of Kundalini awakening from the sacrum follow a precise sequence. First comes the initial stirring, often experienced as heat or tingling at the base of the spine. This is followed by a period of intense purification as the energy begins to rise, clearing blockages and old patterns. The final stage involves the stabilization of higher awareness as the energy establishes new pathways through the subtle body system. Traditional wisdom teachings emphasize the importance of proper preparation before awakening these powerful forces. The sacrum contains safeguards that naturally regulate the release of Kundalini energy, preventing premature or dangerous activation. This is why ancient mystery schools required years of preparation before initiating the 3-day cave mystery process. Modern practitioners can benefit from understanding these sacred principles while working with sacral energy. Regular meditation, breathwork, and ethical living help create the proper conditions for safe awakening. The transformation process cannot be rushed or forced, but must unfold naturally as consciousness evolves and the body-mind system becomes purified. The sacral transformation represents a crucial stage in spiritual evolution, bridging the gap between physical existence and higher consciousness. When properly understood and respected, this process leads to profound healing, increased vitality, and expanded awareness. The ancient wisdom encoded in 3-day cave mysteries continues to guide seekers on the path of transformation, revealing the timeless principles of spiritual awakening through the sacred gateway of the sacrum. Christ Oil Alchemy. The ancient mystery schools taught that spiritual transformation occurs through a sacred inner alchemy, the transmutation of base consciousness into divine awareness through the activation of holy oils within the human system. This process mirrors the monthly cycles of the Kundalini energy as it rises through the spine, purifying and illuminating each energy center along its path. The sacred oils referenced in biblical texts carry deep esoteric significance beyond their literal meaning. When Moses and other initiates spoke of holy anointing oil, they were describing an internal spiritual substance generated through dedicated spiritual practice and divine grace. This crystal-clear oil is produced in the upper brain centers when Kundalini energy is properly cultivated and directed. As this oil descends, it literally anoints the spinal cord and nervous system with divine light. This process follows precise monthly cycles that correspond to lunar phases and natural biological rhythms. For 15 days, the oil is gathered and stored in the brain's sacred chambers through meditation and spiritual practices. Then, for the next 15 days, it descends through the spine, transmuting consciousness at every level. This 30-day cycle continues month after month, gradually transforming the initiate's entire being. The ancient Egyptians depicted this process in their hieroglyphs, showing sacred oils being poured over the heads of pharaohs and priests. The Christian tradition speaks of being anointed with the oil of gladness. These references point to the same inner alchemy, the transmutation of human consciousness through contact with divine energies and substances generated within. This is the true meaning of spiritual alchemy, not the transformation of physical metals, but the refinement of consciousness itself. As the sacred oil descends, it triggers profound changes in awareness and perception. The initiate begins to experience expanded states of consciousness, enhanced intuition, and direct spiritual knowing. Physical health often improves as the body systems are purified and energized. Most importantly, the very nature of consciousness itself is transformed as limited ego-based awareness gives way to cosmic consciousness. This process requires careful preparation and proper technique. The ancient mystery schools provided specific practices to prepare aspirants for this transformation. Purification rituals, breathing exercises, mantras, and meditations. These practices helped ensure the safe and proper activation of the Kundalini energy and the production of the sacred oils. Modern seekers must approach this process with similar dedication and respect for its power. The symbolism of sacred oils appears throughout mystical traditions. The Hindu tradition speaks of soma, the nectar of immortality. Taoists describe the golden elixir of transformation. Christian mystics reference the oil of gladness and holy chrism. While the symbols vary, they point to the same inner process, the generation of spiritualized consciousness through the action of Kundalini energy and sacred substances within the human system. This inner alchemy operates at the intersection of spirit and matter, consciousness and form. As the sacred oil descends, it creates a bridge between dimensions, allowing divine consciousness to manifest in human form. This is the true meaning of spiritual transformation, not an escape from physical reality, but its transmutation into a vehicle for divine expression. Through this process, the initiate becomes a living embodiment of higher consciousness while remaining grounded in earthly existence. The Christ oil represents the highest potentials of human consciousness made manifest through dedicated spiritual practice and divine grace. As we unlock these ancient mysteries, we discover practical methods for accelerating our own evolution and embodying more of our divine nature. The monthly cycles provide a natural rhythm for this transformation, allowing us to progress steadily while maintaining balance and integration. Serpent Wisdom Teachings. The ancient wisdom traditions across cultures have long recognized the profound connection between serpentine energy channels and spiritual awakening. These teachings reveal that the human mind operates through dual channels of energy, represented by twin serpents that mirror the physical nervous system. This ancient understanding forms the foundation of numerous spiritual practices, from the caduceus symbol in Western medicine to the Ida and Pingala nadis of yogic tradition. These serpentine channels serve as conduits for consciousness itself, allowing the mind to interface with both spiritual and material realms. The right channel corresponds to solar energy, representing active masculine qualities, while the left channel embodies lunar energy with receptive feminine attributes. When these opposing forces are properly balanced through spiritual practice, they activate the central channel, awakening the dormant Kundalini force. The wisdom traditions teach that this serpent power lies coiled at the base of the spine, waiting to be awakened through proper preparation and practice. As it rises, it brings about profound transformation in consciousness, leading to expanded awareness and spiritual illumination. This process was well understood by ancient mystery schools, who encoded this knowledge in myths and sacred texts using serpent symbolism. The spirit-matter connection revealed through serpent wisdom shows that consciousness and physical reality are intimately linked through the energetic pathways. Rather than seeing spirit and matter as separate realms, the ancient teachings reveal their fundamental unity. The serpentine forces serve as bridges between dimensions, allowing consciousness to operate across multiple planes of reality simultaneously. This wisdom has profound implications for modern spiritual seekers. By understanding how these channels function, we can work with them consciously to accelerate spiritual evolution. Simple practices like meditation, breathwork, and energy circulation exercises help balance and purify these pathways. As the channels are cleared, higher consciousness naturally awakens and begins to flow more freely through the system. The ancient traditions also emphasize the importance of proper preparation before awakening these powerful forces. The physical, emotional, and mental bodies must be sufficiently purified and strengthened to handle increased energy flow. This requires dedicated practice and often the guidance of those who have already traversed this path. Rushing the process or attempting to force awakening can lead to difficulties. Modern applications of serpent wisdom focus on gentle, systematic approaches to spiritual development. This includes practices to balance the dual channels through breathing exercises, meditation on energy centers, and cultivation of higher awareness. As the pathways are gradually opened and refined, consciousness naturally expands to embrace both material and spiritual dimensions of existence. The spirit-matter connection revealed through serpent wisdom shows that consciousness and physical reality are intimately linked through these energetic pathways. Rather than seeing spirit and matter as separate realms, the ancient teachings reveal their fundamental unity. The serpentine forces serve as bridges between dimensions, allowing consciousness to operate across multiple planes of reality simultaneously. These teachings also reveal that the mind itself operates through these same serpentine channels. Thoughts and awareness flow through these pathways, influenced by their relative balance or imbalance. By working consciously with these channels, we can cultivate greater mental clarity, emotional balance, and spiritual awareness. This understanding provides practical tools for psychological integration and spiritual transformation. The ancient wisdom traditions remind us that these teachings are universal, appearing in various forms across cultures and times. While the symbols and terminology may differ, the essential understanding of serpentine spiritual forces remains consistent. This points to their basis in genuine human experience rather than mere cultural constructs. Modern seekers can therefore draw upon this ageless wisdom while adapting its application to contemporary needs and understanding. Brahmic dimensions. The exploration of Brahmic dimensions represents one of the most profound aspects of spiritual awakening through Kundalini activation. As the serpent energy rises through the spine, it gradually opens doorways to higher states of consciousness that transcend ordinary physical reality. These dimensions aren't separate places, but rather interpenetrating fields of awareness that become accessible as our consciousness expands. The ancient wisdom traditions spoke of multiple planes of existence, with each level corresponding to increasingly subtle states of being. In the Vedic tradition, these are known as the lokas, or dimensional planes, ranging from the physical realm, bhu-loka, to the highest spiritual dimensions, satya-loka. These parallel the Christian concept of the many mansions in the Father's house, suggesting a multi-layered reality that opens up through spiritual development. When Kundalini energy activates the higher spiritual centers, particularly the third eye and crown chakras, our consciousness naturally begins to expand beyond the limitations of physical perception. This expansion allows us to experience reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Much like viewing a crystal from different angles reveals new facets of its structure. This multifaceted awareness is what the ancient texts referred to as bramic consciousness, the ability to perceive unity within diversity. The soul's journey through these dimensional states follows a natural progression as consciousness evolves. Each dimension represents a different frequency of awareness, with its own laws, principles, and ways of experiencing reality. As we ascend through these levels, our understanding becomes more comprehensive and inclusive. This is why ancient mystics often spoke of climbing Jacob's ladder. Each step up represents access to a higher dimensional state of being. In these expanded states of consciousness, time and space operate differently than in our familiar physical reality. Linear time gives way to a more fluid, multidimensional experience where past, present, and future exist simultaneously. This helps explain many mystical experiences recorded throughout history, including prophetic visions and communications with higher dimensional beings. The awakened Kundalini provides the energy necessary to maintain consciousness at these elevated frequencies. The process of accessing these higher dimensions involves a gradual refinement of our spiritual bodies. Each dimension corresponds to a different level of subtle body activation, from the physical to the etheric, astral, mental, and beyond. As Kundalini rises, it activates and purifies these subtle bodies, making them capable of sustaining higher frequencies of consciousness. This is why traditional spiritual practices emphasize purification. It prepares the vehicle of consciousness for higher dimensional experience. One of the most significant aspects of dimensional consciousness is the direct experience of interconnectedness. As awareness expands into higher dimensions, the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. We begin to perceive the underlying unity of all existence, experiencing firsthand what mystics have described as cosmic consciousness or Christ consciousness. This state reveals that all dimensions are actually expressions of one ultimate reality, manifesting at different frequencies of vibration. The practical implications of accessing these Brahmic dimensions are profound. It leads to enhanced intuition, deeper understanding of universal laws, and the ability to operate from a more expanded perspective in daily life. This expanded awareness naturally brings about greater compassion, wisdom, and ability to serve others, as we begin to see beyond the surface level of reality to the deeper connections that unite all beings. Moving through these dimensional states requires careful integration and grounding. While the experiences can be extraordinary, the goal is not to escape physical reality, but to bring higher dimensional awareness into everyday life. This creates a bridge between heaven and earth, allowing divine consciousness to flow more fully into material expression. The awakened Kundalini serves as the connecting force that maintains this bridge between dimensions. Through continued practice and development, these dimensional states become increasingly accessible and stable. The consciousness learns to move fluidly between different levels of awareness while maintaining clarity and presence. This represents the fulfillment of humanity's spiritual potential, the ability to live as multidimensional beings while fully embodied in physical form. Christ consciousness. The concept of Christ consciousness represents the ultimate flowering of Kundalini awakening, where individual awareness expands into universal consciousness. This state transcends religious boundaries and speaks to the inherent divinity within all beings. As Kundalini energy rises through the spine, it gradually transforms human consciousness from limited ego identification to cosmic awareness. The historical figure of Jesus demonstrated this state of expanded consciousness through his teachings and actions. His famous statement, "I and my Father are one," reflects the dissolution of individual identity into universal consciousness. This mirrors the Eastern concept of enlightenment, where the individual self merges with the cosmic self. The Kundalini force serves as the transformative power that enables this profound shift in awareness. When Kundalini reaches the crown chakra, it creates a state of super-consciousness that ancient mystics called Christ consciousness or Buddha nature. This represents more than just an altered state. It signifies a permanent transformation of awareness where one directly experiences the interconnected nature of all existence. The burning bush that Moses encountered symbolizes this enlightened state, where ordinary consciousness is consumed by divine fire, yet remains eternally present. The process of attaining Christ consciousness involves the gradual purification of the physical, emotional, and mental bodies through Kundalini's ascending force. As the serpent energy rises, it burns away karmic patterns and ego attachments that limit consciousness to personal identity. The spinal column becomes a living altar where matter is transformed into spirit and human awareness expands into divine knowing. This expanded state of consciousness manifests specific qualities that Jesus embodied: unconditional love, profound wisdom, healing abilities, and command over natural forces. These are not supernatural powers, but natural capabilities that emerge when consciousness transcends its limited conditioning. The miracles attributed to enlightened masters throughout history demonstrate the latent potential within human consciousness when fully awakened. The role of Kundalini in achieving Christ consciousness cannot be overstated. This primal force rewires the nervous system and activates dormant brain centers, enabling the perception of subtler dimensions of reality. The pineal and pituitary glands undergo alchemical changes, opening the third eye of spiritual vision. The heart center expands dramatically, allowing one to experience universal love and compassion. Divine embodiment occurs when Kundalini permanently transforms the physical body into a vessel capable of holding expanded consciousness. The cells themselves begin to vibrate at a higher frequency, and the DNA undergoes subtle modifications. This explains why many enlightened beings exhibited extraordinary physical capabilities and slowed aging processes. The body becomes light-filled, manifesting the biblical concept of transfiguration. Understanding Christ consciousness as a state of enlightened awareness, accessible to all humans, transforms religious symbolism into practical spiritual science. The cross represents the intersection of time and timelessness where individual awareness meets universal consciousness. The crown of thorns symbolizes the intense pressure felt in the crown chakra as Kundalini forces open higher perceptual centers. This universal state of consciousness transcends all religious and cultural boundaries while fulfilling their highest aspirations. Whether called Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, or unity consciousness, it represents humanity's ultimate potential. The The Kundalini serpent serves as the evolutionary force guiding human consciousness toward this divine unfoldment, just as it has done throughout history in mystery schools and wisdom traditions worldwide. The attainment of Christ consciousness marks not the end, but the beginning of a new phase of human evolution. From this expanded state of awareness, one naturally serves the awakening of others while remaining established in unshakable peace and joy. The Kundalini serpent continues its transformative work, but now in service to the divine plan for planetary evolution rather than individual transformation. Monthly mysteries. The journey of spiritual transformation follows natural cycles that mirror the rhythms found throughout creation. These monthly mysteries represent sacred initiatory periods where consciousness can be elevated through focused spiritual practice and awareness. Just as the moon cycles through its phases every 29.5 days, the human body and spiritual anatomy undergo similar cyclical transformations that can be harnessed for accelerated growth. Ancient mystery schools understood these natural cycles and developed precise systems to work with these energetic windows of opportunity. The monthly rise of Kundalini energy follows a predictable pattern, beginning at the base of the spine during the new moon phase and gradually ascending through the spiritual centers as the moon waxes to fullness. This creates optimal periods for specific spiritual practices aimed at activating and purifying different energy centers along the spine. During the first quarter of the lunar cycle, focus is placed on purification and preparation of the lower spiritual centers. This relates to releasing old patterns, emotional clearing, and establishing proper energetic foundations. The sacral center becomes especially active during this phase, making it an ideal time for practices involving sacred movement, dance, and creative expression that help circulate and uplift vital force. As the moon approaches fullness, the heart center naturally opens and expands. This creates enhanced opportunities for devotional practices, generating unconditional love and radiating healing energy to others. The throat center also becomes more receptive during this phase, supporting practices involving sacred sound, mantras, and higher communication. Many practitioners report increased intuitive insights and prophetic dreams during the full moon period. The third quarter phase supports upper chakra activation and third eye awakening as the energy continues its upward journey. This is an optimal time for meditation, contemplation, and practices aimed at expanding consciousness and spiritual perception. The crown center becomes especially receptive during the last quarter phase before the new moon, creating a natural window for experiencing higher states of consciousness and divine connection. Understanding these monthly rhythms allows practitioners to align their spiritual practices with natural energy flows for maximum benefit. Simple techniques like conscious breathing, visualization, and energy circulation can be enhanced by working with rather than against these cycles. The monthly mysteries also provide a framework for gradual, systematic spiritual development that unfolds in harmony with universal law. Beyond individual practice, group work can be especially powerful during key points in the lunar cycle. When multiple practitioners combine their intention and energy during these natural windows, the effect can be amplified significantly. Many traditional ceremonies and rituals were specifically timed to harness these collective opportunities for transformation. Integration techniques help stabilize and ground the expanded states of consciousness accessed during monthly practice. This includes maintaining physical vitality through proper diet, exercise, and rest. Regular journaling helps track insights and progress while processing the emotional and psychological shifts that arise. Staying connected to supportive community and receiving guidance from experienced practitioners provides essential context and accountability. The monthly mysteries remind us that spiritual transformation is a gradual process that unfolds in natural stages and cycles. Rather than forcing or rushing development, sustainable progress comes through patient, persistent practice in harmony with universal rhythms. This creates a strong foundation for safely awakening higher consciousness, while maintaining balance and groundedness in daily life. Working consciously with these monthly cycles provides a practical framework for systematic spiritual growth. When combined with sincere dedication and proper guidance, This approach allows practitioners to steadily expand their awareness while integrating profound transformational experiences. The monthly mysteries offer a time-tested map for navigating the journey of consciousness evolution. Sacred activation. The culmination of the Kundalini Serpent mysteries lies in the sacred activation of our innate spiritual potential through daily practices and advanced techniques. This transformation of matter into spirit represents the ultimate goal of both Eastern and Western mystical traditions, though it requires careful preparation and guidance to navigate safely. The foundational practice begins with breath awareness and control, known in various traditions as pranayama, ruach, or pneuma. By consciously directing the breath, we activate the subtle energy channels that parallel our physical nervous system. This practice should be undertaken gradually, starting with simple observation of natural breathing patterns before progressing to more advanced rhythmic breathing exercises. These exercises serve to purify the nadis or spiritual channels, preparing them for the stronger currents of Kundalini energy. Meditation forms another crucial component of sacred activation. Rather than attempting to force Kundalini awakening, which can be dangerous, meditation creates the proper internal conditions for natural unfoldment. Begin with focusing attention at the base of the spine, the location of the dormant Kundalini energy. Through regular practice, one develops sensitivity to the subtle sensations and movements of energy in this region. As awareness deepens, the meditation can expand to include the entire spinal column, visualized as a channel of light. Physical preparation plays an essential role in sacred activation. The body must be strong and flexible enough to handle increased energy flows. Gentle stretching exercises, particularly those focusing on the spine, help create the necessary physical foundation. The ancient practice of spinal rolls, moving slowly through each vertebra, helps maintain flexibility while stimulating energy flow. However, extreme physical practices or forceful attempts to raise Kundalini should be avoided. Sound vibration offers another powerful tool for sacred activation. The use of sacred sounds, whether through chanting, toning, or mantra recitation, helps attune the subtle body to higher frequencies. These practices should be approached with reverence and consistency rather than intensity. The vibrations gradually refine the energy channels and centers, making them more receptive to spiritual energy. Diet and lifestyle choices significantly impact the success of sacred activation practices. A pure diet rich in fresh fruits and vegetables supports the refinement of consciousness. Limiting stimulants and maintaining regular sleep patterns help stabilize the nervous system. Regular fasting periods, when appropriate, can accelerate the purification process. Advanced techniques for sacred activation should only be undertaken under qualified guidance. These might include specific mudras, sacred gestures, bandhas, energy locks, and specialized breathing patterns. The timing of these practices often aligns with natural cycles, lunar phases, seasonal changes, and daily biological rhythms. Safety guidelines must be strictly observed during sacred activation work. Signs of premature or imbalanced Kundalini awakening include excessive heat, insomnia, emotional instability, or unusual physical sensations. If these occur, immediately reduce practice intensity and seek guidance. Grounding practices like walking in nature, working with soil, or eating root vegetables can help manage excessive energy. The ultimate goal of sacred activation extends beyond personal transformation. As individual consciousness expands through these practices, it naturally influences the collective field of human awareness. This ripple effect contributes to the evolution of global consciousness, fulfilling the ancient prophecies of spiritual awakening. Regular journaling helps track progress and identify patterns in the activation process. Record daily practices, experiences, dreams, and insights. This documentation serves both as a personal guide and potentially as wisdom to share with others on the path. Sacred activation represents a lifetime journey of continuous unfoldment rather than a destination to be reached. Integration of sacred activation practices into daily life creates a sustainable path of spiritual growth. Rather than treating these practices as separate from regular activities, seek to maintain awareness of the subtle energy body throughout daily tasks. This ongoing consciousness creates a bridge between the material and spiritual aspects of existence, leading to authentic transformation and awakening.